systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the PGA version of Leverage Lane. We did this through NFL. I know I'm starting it off that way. Got my man Alex Blickle here with me as always, but we did do this during football, and I know with the Super Bowl just wrapping up, we'll definitely have some folks that are just joining us for the first time this week, so welcome in. The golf season may be officially starting for some now, even with the Waste Management last week. We do have the Pebble Beach, AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am this week. It is a signature event, a smaller field. Scottie Scheffler is here, and DraftKings is running no Scheffler contest. I do want to clear the air quickly, though, Alex, before I bring you in. That was most certainly, if people couldn't catch on to it, a very not serious joke. When I posted that out, people were like, ToeTagginTambo loves this thing. He got it approved, and he's, he must be loving this. Like, nobody was asking for that, and I don't know why that would actually be a thing in DFS. But I'll bring you in, my friend. How you doing?
Yeah, very weird to see that. I'm glad that they didn't interrupt any of the actual contests, and we got all the well-sized contests. So yeah, I would like to see that market disappear, that contest type disappear. But as long as it doesn't interfere with what we're doing on a week-to-week basis, then they can do whatever they want with it. Yeah,
I will say, if people want to give me that credit, sweet. I don't think I have that kind of pull, but I actually would, hot take, I don't think we'll ever see that again after this week. It doesn't look like it's going to fill. I think it's a bit ridiculous from a DFS perspective. I get for betting markets and stuff. People have a lot to talk about, but it's part of the puzzle in what we do. Like your original comment when I posted the joke was, hey, I kind of like it if they keep pricing it correctly. It makes this more of a puzzle. Whether people like it or not, again, some will be here for the first time. We're trying to bring a new spin to it each week, but we definitely will have the to Scottie or not to Scottie conversation. Again, it's just part of the game that we play right now, and it matters. Imagine back in the day, it's not even putting them in the same class right now, just noting it. But if Tiger Woods was, if we were doing this when Tiger Woods was on his run back then, we would have to have those conversations. Is it VJ, Singh, and Phil, or is it Tiger? And what are these conversations going to be? Well, now it's a little bit different with Scottie, but I'll let you jump in. Obviously, I see you got something there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about, whether we want to play Scottie or not. Having the Scottie discussion is really important for ownership, because if you can't get Scottie right, you can't get Rory, Tommy, Hovland, Siwoo, Hideki right. You're just going to get all of them wrong if you're wrong about Scottie. And if you're wrong about Scottie, you're also going to be wrong about Kitayama and Minwoo Lee and Connors and Stevens and McCarty, like all the guys getting ownership down there as well. So it's a really important conversation to have, because it literally shapes the entire slate when you start with what do we do with Scottie and what is everybody else going to do with Scottie.
Certainly. And if you're just joining us for the first time, or if you're back again, we appreciate you. See a lot of folks in the chat. I just brought some of the content, some of the comments up, and we got our guy who does our content, boots on the ground. Matt Gannon was in there. So he's out at Pebble right now. He almost blew away yesterday. We got to see that video of him sort of floating away. He was falling around with Rory right up close to him. I saw some stuff from Rory on X as well. I saw Rory make an eagle on the final hole there or whatever. And that was pretty cool. But just noting it, if you're just joining us, we are going to break down a little bit of a recap from last week. It's an edutainment show. We're trying to bring you something that's a little bit more evergreen, but then take the review and make it application. So review, application, very important in something like DFS, where you can learn a little bit from last time and then be able to apply it moving forward. But we are going to focus directly on this slate. When we get there, we'll talk about what the chalk build looks like for the week. The Scottie conversation, very important around that. Then we'll talk about how you can leverage what others are doing or what looks like the chalk build this week. And then at the end, we'll have our leverage lane from a DFS perspective of what we're doing on a single entry this week. It's a more single entry GPP focus. We do have a one and done segment at the end. We also have a betting breakdown. So that's going to happen at the end as well. But before I forget from last week, Alex, you don't have one for this week. It was an awesome comment from Aaron last week that we brought up, and we spent so much time on it and then forgot to remind people. So 3 things. Give us a thumbs up. If you're watching on mobile, don't hit the heart. You have to press the little X on the chat box just for a second, hit the thumbs up, then let the chat box pop back up. If you're on desktop, it's right there. You can't miss it. It's a thumbs up down below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get all this content for free, all the other stuff that we do over here at Ship It. And then lastly, all you right now are watching this live, but those watching it on playback or however you want to call it, watching it later on replay, leave a comment and let us know down below. You can't do it while you're live, but later you can. Let us know in the comments below what your, just some thought-provoking comment, whether it was something that was interesting that you took away, or if you have a question for future that you want us to know. What we're going to continue doing, and again, starting next week, is making sure to pull those comments up. And we're each going to give you guys a free week to Ship It Nation. And I think, Alex, you said you're going to give a free week as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. To my Discord.
Yeah, perfect. That's awesome. So shout out to everybody that joined us. Quick recap just on last week's stuff. I will say, the biggest takeaway, man, the pun gets used and overused, but the pun is overblown. The weather conversation would not go away. It was painful. I said, I honestly wish we could get weather advantage. I wish we could get true weather advantage slates. We said last week we didn't think it was a true weather advantage slate, like the projections, the ownership. If you have good ones, we'll still reflect that stuff. We were very high on mentioning that. Like, you don't need to go all in on this, but you pretty much need like British Open back in the day, like Mickelson, Stenson conditions to like go all in on it, right? I think a lot of people get confused with that kind of thing. And I said, I wish we could have true weather edge slates with no Discord weather talk. It was literally painful. It was like being at a Thanksgiving dinner table with politics being talked about all around, everybody on different sides. It just turns into a battle. It's like play. That's literally the definition of leverage lane, is pick your lane, go in it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, learn from it and move on. But like, you did not have to be all in on the weather last week. It was not the case whatsoever.
Yeah, I thought the part of the discussion that bothers me, both before and after, is just like the certainty with which people talk about it, and the certainty with which people then talk in hindsight about, oh, anyone who's saying there was going to be a weather edge was dead wrong, and anyone who said there wasn't was obviously correct. And in my Discord, like, I think what I wrote was there was about a 50% chance of no wave advantage, about a 30% chance that it was going to be like half a stroke to a stroke, and then there was a 15 to 20% chance that it was going to be a huge advantage that you just couldn't overcome if you didn't have the wave stack. And so I ended up actually going against the wave edge, and I think I played 4 guys who were in the quote unquote bad wave, and it wasn't about like searching for correlation. It was just, hey, you know what, I think the field has moved so heavily in favor of this potential wave advantage that now, like, all of the best plays in this other wave that I loved coming into the week and then saw that they were going to be 15 to 20% owned, now they're going to be 8% or 11%. And all of a sudden they're among the most under-owned plays on the slate. And so, like, Nikolai Højgaard, got her up to both of those guys. Like, that was my core, because all of a sudden they were going to be really low owned instead of the chalk that they were expected to be before people started to factor in the weather. So basically just said, I think people are overestimating the likelihood of the wave advantage. And that, to me, is what we should be doing with the weather. It's always a probability question. What is the probability it shows up? What is the probability that it's super impactful if it does show up? And just use all of that and relate it to ownership. So it's the part that bothers me, as I said, is just the certainty with which people talk about it. And, anybody who thought there was going to be a wave edge was an idiot and they're using bad weather sources. No, those weather sources were telling us that it was uncertain. They were telling us that it was a wide range of outcomes, and we should lean into that uncertainty and try to harness it the best we can.
Yeah, and one thing to know too, just of that, like we talked about this as well. Like, if I was already, for me, it's like, what do you like as well? It's the same reason when we sometimes talk about the Scottie stuff. Like, if you have 30 guys down low that you're really interested in and you like Scottie, well, you should try and put that together. I'm certain there's a version that you can find of it. If you were already, for me last week, like, I was high on Xander, clearly did not work out. We take the L's, move on. Like, it is what it is. But I'm saying I had reasoning to it, which everybody loved before the tournament started. And then when it happens, it's like, oh, that was such a terrible thing. It's, again, we're playing a game. So as my friend Title likes to say, new dad Title, congrats to my man Title, by the way. But just noting, he says, not how often you're right, it's how much you win when you are right. We're playing for that. To our guy, rest in peace, DGen, big guy in the sky. Like, people keep forgetting this. I hammered it in my Discord over at Ship It Nation last week. We all go through it each week, and you do it in your Discord. We do it in ours. It's like, people might have forgot about spike weeks. Like, you're playing 30 to 40 weeks of golf, not just slates, because some people are playing 3 to 5 slates a week with Showdown included. So you're playing all these slates. You're going to spike 3 to 4 times. And that's just how often can you spike and how much can it be worth when you do. You better get comfortable losing. The all-star baseball players that go out and hit 300, well, 70% of the time, it's not looking good. They can have 5 strikeout games. Ohtani went 0 for 5 one game. It's like, oh, is he a loser? No, that's how it goes sometimes. And he'll come back and smash 3 home runs on you another game. So got to remember that too. But you should be leaning into, if you weren't on Scottie and you were in on Xander and you still like the guys down low that were in the afternoon wave and you already had 5 PM guys, you don't just got to do it because of the weather. It's like, okay, I'm already in on 5 p.m. guys. And I know we'll talk about it this week. That's why I'm bringing it up, because we've got the Spyglass and Pebble Beach. And when you think back to like my North course, South course the week before, it didn't win all the money, but it was pretty solid for me. Got a nice big mega ticket, all that stuff, just going all in on the North course, because I could now play 5-6 guys that people liked on that course. But it's like you always say, it's not just who you play, it's who you don't play. It alleviated me from some of those busts on the other side of that, that course setup. So I don't know if you want to elaborate any more on that, but I just sort of thought that was another point to bring up heading into this week. And then we'll kind of segue there anyway.
Yeah. So I think it's a perfect segue into the weather that we have this week, because once again, it does look a little bit uncertain, but if we had to guess right now, it looks fairly clear that the windiest conditions of the first 2 days are going to be Friday afternoon. Now, it also matters less because on Friday afternoon, no one's battling to make the cut. So does it really matter? Probably not. But there's probably over the first 2 days, there might be like half a stroke to a full stroke advantage for players who start on Pebble, because Pebble historically has been much more affected by wind. Now, it's more exposed on the cliff sides, but I think it's also just a bit about like the actual design of the golf course. There's the margin when it becomes difficult, it's taking you into lots of bogeys and potential double bogeys with penalty strokes. And when it's calm, it's birdie hole after birdie hole. And so the scoring variance, I think, is just higher on Pebble. And that's why historically we've seen it get more affected by wind. So I would like my guys to play, as long as the rest of the field isn't on this as well. And we get, we don't get the same type of ownership movement on other players that we did last week. If all else is equal, I would like my guys to play Pebble in the calmer conditions, and then the more protected by trees, Spyglass in the windier conditions on Friday. Now, again, it's not as impactful as it would have been if there was a cut after 2 days, because then, that weather edge can be the difference between 6 for 6 and 4 for 6. Now everyone's going to play the weekend, but maybe you just get a little bit of a head start. So it's not a huge thing, but it is something to at least discuss.
Yeah, something to think about too when you're out there building, and we'll look at it when we get to sort of how it sets up. But again, the other thing with a signature event, there's multiple different angles to approach it from. I know some people want to talk a little strategy on that type of stuff. I mean, the Scottie conversation is going to be a big one, but also the tee times, not as spread out. Like this is more because of a course rotation than it is like an AM, PM type of thing, where it's like it could be 4 hours apart and on full morning right off the bat versus full afternoon type of thing. It's not as spread apart because it's just the what is it, like a 2.5 hour window or something like that. It's just not as drastic as what we usually see. All right, we'll get into more in just a second. I do want to bring this up. I got to note it, Alex. We're going to be talking about the one and done segment, and so I got to bring this up. This is pretty insane. Could be like the most massive overlay we've seen ever, or maybe at least for 1 second. I got it there a while, but Splash Sports. You go to splashsports.com. If you want to use promo code SHIPIT or referral code SHIPIT, you can, but it's not really about that. This is the biggest overlay opportunity I've seen in quite some time. We are less than 24 hours until lock, and there is less than 24%. When it opened this morning, my joke was going to be there's less. I think we're just over now, but it's there was less than 24% into the tournament. So this is a $100 one and done that they put on. It is a $150,000 guaranteed. There's some bonus prizes, a ton of eligibility there, but $20,000 to first, $2,300 and up for top 10. It's like a $600 min cash. A little less of the field gets paid, but we didn't do all, like there's already one and dones that people are in that have segments and balanced everything. The structure is pretty balanced from 150K, 20K, and 2K, but we also are Ship It Nation. We're playing to win it. It's not like Split It or Balance It Nation. Like we're trying to get a nice tournament top prize up there, kind of like what we did with Ship It Games, where not everybody's going to be able to win, but whoever does win is going to get a nice prize. So $100 to get into this. We'll cover one and done at the end from like the full year perspective. This is a little bit different starting at Pebble, but we wanted to sort of wait to Super Bowl to wrap up and all that. But the biggest thing currently, 423 entries out of 1667. So you got, plenty of time, but only less than a day basically to get into this thing. I'll just bring it up from there. Anything else you want to touch on for this week before we get into it?
No, I will definitely be playing that. That's quite the overlay opportunity. So love that.
Yeah, massive for sure. So check that out, splashsports.com. Now, typically we go in, I don't know if you want to recap anything else, but I'd like to talk about the weather for this week. I think that's, you did just chat on it a little bit. I'm not sure if you want to bring up windy and show that off. And then I want to lean sort of right into the Scottie conversation, I think, and then the chalk build from there. But is there anything else from a course fit perspective that you want to talk about, or just this event as a whole?
Yeah, this course fit model is honestly a little bit annoying. It's every single aspect of golf, driving distance, driving accuracy, approach play, and around the green play are less predictive than usual here, except for putting. Putting is a little bit more predictive than usual. So what does this mean? Well, it means that when we look at our projections over at FTN Fantasy, the guys who are popping are like Harry Hall, Denny McCarthy. I don't want those guys to pop. And one of the reasons why I don't want those guys to pop is because my intuition says you can't win a golf tournament. You can't contend in a golf tournament on putting alone. You need more skills than that. And so one thing I did also do this week is I checked, okay, the course fit model essentially says on average, how does each skill set translate into success? But what I did beyond that was say, okay, but are there any other skill sets that are required here to help give you like a top 10 upside for the week? And the answer actually is yes. Iron play and around the green play are also very much required to get that kind of upside. So that made me feel better. That kind of takes, Harry Hall a little bit more out of the equation. His iron play is atrocious, though he does have a really good short game. So we shouldn't be shocked if he contends. But it takes Danny a little bit out because the iron play isn't there for him. It makes Minwoo Lee a tougher sell because the iron play is, I think Minwoo Lee's iron play is our worst projected skill in the entire week, like the lowest, number of any skill for any player in this field. So we do at least have that aspect of it, but like driving, just both aspects of it, distance and accuracy are a lot less predictive here than usual. So we're kind of looking for those guys who, okay, well, who benefits from that skill being less predictive? And that doesn't mean that great drivers can't do well here. We just saw Rory last year. Pat and I talked about this a lot. Like Rory had a 98th percentile outcome with the driver for him, not just for anybody, but for him. That was an unbelievable week. And when an elite player is on their game at that level, it doesn't matter what the course fit model says. That skill is going to be a separator. So, that's how Rory won last year. But it's also true that Rory played well beyond the driver. And, he went and then won the Players' Championship when the driver wasn't even working. So he was very clearly a super complete player at that time last year and might still be at this time. We'll see what he's got at the start of the season. But yeah, from a course fit perspective, it's not as great as last week where we could lean into, the skill set that we already like to lean into with driver, where accuracy and distance were both more predictive last week. It's less predictive this week. And I think the main takeaway there is it's almost a little bit less to me about, okay, who does that point to? And a little more about what it just means for the general field this week, which is it's a little bit harder to predict who's going to do well. There's a little bit more variance and volatility this week. And maybe that means we get a little bit more contrarian, or we try a little bit harder to find the super low owned guys because it's kind of anybody's ball game this week.
Yeah, I want to bring that up. Actually, Scooter says, help me not suck at no cut events this week, guys. I know you didn't suck last week. I saw some pretty big tickets you posted in our Discord on the betting side of things and everything else to go with it. But the point being too, you said like if the course fit model is showing that there's a little bit more variance already, you have a signature event, which, well, this is something that I think people overlook as well. Oh, field size is way smaller. Like, giddy up. Let's go. We got a way smaller field. Yeah, it's all way better players. It's the best. Mm-hmm. Versus when you have 156, you can like write off 60 of them instantly probably and just say, I'll just start there. And that's why DraftKings does just throw 100 guys into the 6K range on a random week. It's like, like 80 of these guys are useless to you, but we'll just put them down there. And then you figure out the top of the board. Here, there is conversations to be had. So like you said, embracing some of that variance, definitely not victory lapping anything on Thursday, Friday, or even really Saturday, to be honest. When you got a no cut, shit changes quick. So if you're way behind on Thursday, I can tell you from experience, it means nothing. If you're way up there on Thursday, I can also tell you it means nothing. So just to give you guys a heads up, hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better about it. It's play your showdown contests. We've got some course rotation stuff. I think you can look at it from that perspective. But the one thing I said about that in my, over in the Discord today at Ship It, was, get everyone getting fired up for round one showdown with like Pebble, like Spyglass Pebble stuff. It's like the round one is the toughest because you don't have anything on the golfers yet, no stats. If any non-casual, like it's the most non-casual event. Like even a lot of like the diehards don't even play round one, but they'll get in on round one because of the way it is. So to me, it's like the least, it's less than you think is what I'm trying to say for like what your advantage would be. But I do think that's something to think about. So
yeah, I've got data on that. Since since the change to signature event status, these courses have played very similarly in difficulty. And the biggest thing is Pebble averages more birdies per round, but it also averages more bogeys per round. So you're getting a higher variance of scoring. I think at Pebble is a pretty clear way to view it. And so especially on the calmer days, I'm probably going to go 6 Pebble, 0 Spyglass. If we do get the windier Friday, I might totally reverse that. I might only, get a few Spyglass guys. I'm not sure exactly how I'd handle it, but if it's calm, I will be going 6 Pebble.
Yeah. And I guess a couple quick questions that popped up. We like to get these throughout. Like we said, if you guys have other questions and you're watching this on playback or replay, make sure to put them in the comments for us, or just any thought-provoking thoughts. Like I heard you say this and I thought it was really interesting because we're looking at all of those. We can't respond to them all, but I think the main thing is we'll be bringing up at least one and picking a winner each week. So, put your comment in after. But what's your thoughts on this real quick? Course history in general versus taking into account, not taking it so much into account this week with it being a no-cut event.
I don't ever take course history into account, so it doesn't change for me.
I can already know why we have such good chemistry and why we're friends, because that's what I said to somebody before, like course history. And
let me elaborate on that for a second. By the way, course history is always going to be something that people look at, and the reason why it's always going to be something that people look at is because there is some signal there. My opinion is that the signal that exists in course history is course fit signal. At FTN, we have a course fit model. We are directly measuring course fit in a very analytically sound and robust way. I don't need to then go look at course history to tell me about the fit. I already have the fit for each player. Course history is not telling me anything that the course fit model is not telling me. So I don't want to look at that, because at that point, all I'm looking at is noise, and I can be, steered in the wrong direction. If you don't have access to a course fit model, and like everyone at Chip It has course fit stuff. I know you guys do course fit stuff as well. If you have access to course fit stuff, whether it's ours at FTN, yours, even Data Golf's, like, you shouldn't be looking at course history. It's not telling you anything beyond the fit analysis that's already being done. So you're just looking at noise, and you're looking at tiny samples in a sport where sample size means everything. So it's just, I think, again, like if, I think you mentioned it, like your dad does the one and done. My dad does the one and done. My dad does not do any analysis. It makes sense for him to do a quick Google search of how the player that he's picking has done at the course, because it's the only course fit signal that he's going to get. If you have better course fit signal than the course history, you should not be looking at course history. That's my little.
I like that breakdown, because my dad's big course history guy when it comes down to it. That's his thing, right? He goes on whatever it is, like golf betting system or whatever, the one that has like the combination stats of their recent form and their course history. Like that's all he has. Now, I don't know how much he uses it, but I did give him a membership. Like, hey, I can kind of get you one of those. I'll hook you up, get you a Ship It Nation membership. I don't know how much he uses it, but certainly did hook him up there. So I appreciate the question from Go Collect. There was one quick thing I just want to note fast, because obviously we're huge overlay potential, but that is for anyone. The splash contest, splashsports.com. Even if you don't use our referral code, you'll ship it. Don't have to. Like, just go sign up for the one and done for $100. It works out to less than $4 per event, and you pick a golfer each week. That's it. It can't get more simple. Who's going to win me the most money this week? I think this golfer, and then you can't use them again. One and done. You get it? There we go. So the next one. Do you think the rain? So Gannon was out there yesterday. Super wet, right? Some of the guys, I think he said Rory did the full 18, but not many other golfers did, if at all. So he said it was soaked, possible rain today. If so, do we think off the tee matters more than normal on a wet course? I know we've seen, Wyndham Clark, we've seen Rory, guys like, yes, good drivers of the ball and long drivers of the ball do end up doing good in golf tournaments. It kind of helps, but that can be said about a lot of guys. And then people that you don't even think are long in some cases are still hitting it like 310, and you're like, oh, but they're not 330. Okay, but they're still pounding it out there, and then they've got other skill sets that go with it. So what's your thoughts on this question here from Ryan?
I think distance could spike a little bit, and in the past, like as of about 3 years ago, before it became a signature event, we actually did see distance as a bit of a separating skill here. I think that's partially just because it was such a weaker field that the longer guys were typically the better players. So There is a chance that distance is going to spike, but I don't think it'll be a ton, and I don't think accuracy is going to spike. Accuracy might even go down just because like the reason why driving isn't very predictive here is because there are just so many holes where everyone's hitting the ball to the exact same spot. People are laying up on number 1. They're semi laying up on number 3, or they're just ripping it around the corner in, a really kind of awkward drive. And then they're laying up on 4. They're laying up on 8. On 9 and 10, nobody's aiming down the middle of the fairway because the miss right is so drastic that, guys are going to miss a little bit left after having made a better swing than guys who end up in the fairway right. So you just have like this really kind of diminished effect of driving, because very, very rarely are guys actually being tested. How long and straight can you hit the ball on this drive? It's just a really unique course in that way.
Yeah. I want to get to the Scottie conversation, I think, next, but just real quick. So my man Kenny says that was me, the course history into it. I know you wrote, I'm happy to see you here because I know you wrote your own obituary in our Discord last week. He plays very high stakes, nosebleeds. I've had some good conversations with him and appreciate him always sharing with the community and talking about, he showed off his portfolio from last year. We did a little mastermind project that you've been on with me as well. And he went through that. He was the first interview to do for Mastermind as well, but he did show off his $3 million in buy-ins. So it's public, so I can talk about it. He showed off $3 million in buy-ins and talked about his goals and sort of holding himself accountable coming into that playthrough for 2026. But you hopefully, now that you're here and the obituary wasn't real, thank God, hopefully you put course history in that grave instead, my friend, because it's like Alex just explained, not something you really should require. Last one, and then we'll move it along. But with it being a no-cut event, our man Sean Sully, shout out to him, getting me on the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday, the big Seahawks lover. He got the job done there. The Patriots did not show up at all, and the Seahawks defense most certainly did. But he says, with it being a no-cut event, are you more willing to go all in on certain golfers you like, or are you more willing to go all in on certain golfers you like the most since you are guaranteed 4 days? I would be curious to know, like I talk about, like play lighter, play tighter. If I'm playing 20 lineups, I actually have no problem personally of like locking a guy because it's you're in or you're out. The difference in like a 20 max, people mistake less lineups, 20 instead of 150. That's great, but they mistake that being still a small field. A lot of those 20 maxes still have a massive field that you're up against. So if it's a Scottie week for me, I could easily just lock Scottie in 20 max and say, okay, I'm in on Scottie and let's roll it. But what do you think about this? And does the portfolio size really matter to you too?
I'm not sure that it really changes. This definitely seems to me like a bit of an MME question. Like, are you more willing to go 100% or 80% exposure on a guy? Yeah. I don't know if it changes. If I had to guess, I think it would actually work in the opposite direction, that you're getting less separation between your favorite guys and the guys around them because everyone's guaranteed 4 days. So you're losing the higher likelihood of your guys making the cut and separating that way. So I think it's the other way around, but you might be able to make an argument that there's less variance because everyone gets 4 rounds. And so, you're less likely to get burned by the guys you love just because they have a one bad day early on and now they have 2 extra days to make it up. So it's a hard one to answer. It's a kind of a fun theoretical question. My gut is that the answer is it very, very, very like minutely changes and it's not really worth thinking about. You should just kind of, take your normal approach.
Okay. Are we good to go to Scottie conversation? I'm going to add one more point on this, but then we'll go to Scottie. So I just want to say that I just made this one up. I love a good one-liner, but I think, look, if this is MME and the 20 max situation and stuff, like I said, I think it's going to be obviously how your risk, risk adversity, things like what are you willing to do? And knowing that if you're right on Scottie, it's going to mean well. If you're wrong on Scottie, I think you did this last week, Sean, if I recall correctly. I think you locked Scottie and, he made his way back up, but obviously other guys got there. So I think that's part of it. But even if you're a single entry player, people say I'm a single entry player, but I play 5 different single entries. I play the $5, I play the $12, I play the 27, I play the 50, and I play the 100 or whatever else gets mixed in. I'm just saying, even if you're doing that, I just made this one up, but don't let your conviction lead to contradiction. And what I mean by that is if you have conviction on Scottie and you have high conviction on them, why are you trying to you're just going away to go away at that point? If you really think it's Scottie and Scottie lineups are going to be the ones that get there, then I don't care if you have 5 single entries, 3 single entries, 150, whatever you're doing. If that's how you feel and you don't want to spread it out and you're good with that risk, I wouldn't contradict yourself in those other lineups. Now, if I'm playing like a 3-max, I might have 2 lineups that are cored up and very similar to each other and say, look, I got conviction on this setup, but I'm not sure about my last 3 value plays. So I'm going to mix them up just to how you talked about it before, playing a 3-max like a single entry. But then I may go with my third one and say, I'm going to sort of play a Scottie lineup and these 2 not Scottie. That's just a way you could do it to balance your portfolio if you're kind of uncertain. But if you have full conviction, there's not really as much need for contradiction. You can just roll with those lineups. So yeah, I really just wanted to say that because it rhymed, but I also I mean it. And I think I, can put good meaning behind it in that that's how I would think about it. Doesn't mean it's right. It's just how I would think about spending my money if I was putting it out there, because you are spending money on this stuff. So I want you to do it in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's the same concept as like you want to differentiate the part of the lineup that you're most uncertain about. That you think this is the weak spot of the lineup. I will give myself as many chances to get the weakest spot correct as I differentiate, and that means that you're not hedging on the part of the lineup that you have the most conviction on. And if that's Scottie, then don't play an on Scottie lineup. If it's not Scottie, if you feel like, okay, I'm really confident in these 2 or 3 $7,200 value plays, but I don't know if I should pair them with Scottie and 2 other 7K guys or with Siwoo Hideki and Chris Gotterup. Okay, now you do one Scottie and you do one of the balance build. So whatever your conviction is, build around that and differentiate elsewhere.
This was a key point. That's why I tried to put this out there earlier, Kenny. So Kenny coming back up with a good one. It's like it's not just about Scottie. That is the whole point. And this is the conversation we're about to get into again that we've got into the last 2 weeks. It is about the rest, but that's what I'm saying. If someone has conviction on the value plays that all make Scottie fit and they like Scottie, well, then it's pretty clear where you should go. Like you have 30 value plays you got to work through and you love Scottie. Well, guess what? You can make a lot of good lineups around that, whether it's multiple single entries or a 20 max or whatever it is. If you don't like an entire range and your conviction is this all sucks and you're going to start with Scottie, you're going to have to find some of that stuff. But yeah, think about it as a whole. The game we play still involves 6 options. And that's why we always talk about when people get up in their feelings about a donkey chalk piece getting there. It's like, it's not a vacuum. It's not a matchup bet between that. We talked about Corey Connors and Gotterup the week he won. We like Corey Connors. We thought he was the best chalk. He did not do the best. We said, but there's a guy like Gotterup right next to him who could win this thing. Like he's an outlier that he has huge ceiling if he gets there. He could blow up in your face as well. But everyone always takes it as like either or. You have 6 spots to fill and both of them could fit quite comfortably into a lineup. So hopefully that helps that you guys can think about it. The code is SHIPIT, just SHIPIT. Let's go to Scottie. Let's start me off. I know you had some amazing math over in your Discord that really explains it well, but I think you kind of said pre-show, like you've got a way that you can just sort of break it down to people this week. Give me your overarching Scottie thoughts, and then you can bring whatever angle you want into it on this slate particularly.
So a few weeks ago, we did like a hypothetical before the slate started of what are you giving up when you play Scottie? And we looked at, the likelihood of getting all 3. We looked at, I think it was Henley, Siwoo Kim, and Hideki or something like that. Yeah, against Scottie, Patrick Rogers, and Sam Stevens. And what we saw was the likelihood of getting all 3 guys in the top 5, all 3 guys in the top 10, all 3 guys in the top 20. That's where the disadvantage for Scottie lineups lied. And what we saw last week was actually like a perfect example of the shortcomings of Scottie lineups. And to start, it's worth noting last week was about as well as the cheapies could have done for Scottie lineups. Scottie lineups averaged 4.9 cuts made to 3.6 cuts made for non-Scottie lineups, which means that the difference wasn't just about Scottie making the cut. It was literally about guys that you had to use to fit with Scottie actually made cuts at a higher rate than like the more balanced guys. So a very unique week in that sense. It couldn't go better for Scottie, and yet still non-Scottie lineups were more likely to have 3 guys in the top 20. They were 3 times more likely to have 4 guys in the top 20. They were 6.5 times more likely to have 5 guys in the top 20. They were almost twice as likely to have 3 guys in the top 10. And in the $55 with about 1,500 people, 0 of the 224 Scottie lineups had 4 guys in the top 10, 2.2%. So 31 of the 1,428 lineups that did not have Scottie had 4 guys in the top 10. When you use Scottie, the biggest obstacle is the upside of the cheap guys. They just can't contend often enough to give the lineup as a whole the upside you need to take down tournaments. From there, we can segue into this event and say, okay, but is a signature event, smaller field, different? Because now that 7K range, instead of being guys like Michael Brennan and Takumi Kanaya, it's Minwoo Lee, JT Poston, Keith Mitchell, Wyndham Clark, Sahith Theegala, Akshay Bhatia, like guys who actually have real upside. So it does change a little bit in that regard. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Tambo, on is that different enough where now the Scottie lineups have upside? But there's also an added variable this week where now the field is strong enough that one of the things that's going to potentially keep Scottie's ownership in check is the fact that people do want to play the other guys up top. They want to play Rory. They want to play Tommy and Hovland and Siwoo and Hideki. Like all the guys who have been playing well are there. And now we also have Rory, Tommy, guys we haven't seen yet this year, Russell Henley, who are common, DFS player favorites. So it's a very interesting Scottie decision this week because there are now two reasons why we maybe shouldn't play Scottie. But one of those reasons, the upside of the cheaper guys, I think is diminished at least a little bit based on this field.
Yeah, part of it is also too, like you look at it. Yeah, you mentioned some of the names, and there's some ups and downs. So like Akshay was 6,900 last week. He went up to 73. He's fine down there. I'm just saying, like the example, like you met Kitayama. He was 7,600 last week. He's 73. Some of it's not as changed as people think. Some people are saying, "Oh my God, look at the talent down here." But the bigger thing I'm wondering about, and we'll get to this in a second, talking about the chalk build. But again, yes, there's guys down there you can play with Scottie. I think there's more of them than we saw last week because the cut factor matter. This is a no cut. When you do have the McGreevy, Smalley, Rogers, Jagger, Penge, Hoey, who else? Grazerman, all these guys are sub 7K. So it's like those are possibilities that can make a Scottie lineup work, especially if Scottie has a good week. But what's most interesting to me is about some of those guys getting pushed down is now you start to see like Morikawa's 7,800. Again, how do people adapt? I'm not lobbying for a play. I'm explaining stuff. I know people hate Morikawa, but like Harris English, Burns, 8,000, Cam Young, 8,100, Oberg, 8,300, Ben Griffin, 8,400. These were 9 and 10K guys, some of them in weeks previous. So do you think that means like more people can lean in to this, especially with how well Siwoo and Goddard and guys like that are playing in the 9Ks? And then, I guess my biggest fear is, not really a fear, but just, again, we have to get ownership right. That's the key component to it all, is like the Rory Fleetwood thing. I'm going a couple different places here, but it's all tied together. Is like the Rory Fleetwood thing can go one of two ways. People haven't seen them in a while, don't want to go to Scottie, and they're like, all right, I'll go to those guys now. But also it can sometimes be that effect of like Rory should get something no matter what, but like Fleetwood is over 10K. Those that don't know what he's been doing in different places and all this stuff this last year, like, maybe they're on a rock somewhere, but I'm guessing I'm noting that. And then they're saying, maybe I can just leave those guys out and I don't even need to go to Scottie and I can just start with Siwoo. And then I'll still be able to fit the Jake Knapp at 7,900, the $8,100 Cam Young. So give me thoughts on that, I guess, flipping it back to you just on a quick note.
Yeah. So I think part of, that answer is like, I do think part of the field is just going to say, I'm just going to keep riding the hot hand. And so someone who's using Siwoo and Hideki is probably more likely to use Goddard than, Patrick Cantlay. Somebody who's using, those guys are also more likely to use Jake Knapp as one of the value guys. Basically, like just saying, throughout my lineup, I'm just going to ride the hot hands. Sahith Theegala, Akshay Bhatia now after last week. So I think there's kind of like a correlation there of where people go based on who they like at the top. But I also think like another kind of aspect of the Scottie conversation that I should have brought up is last week, Goddard was in 26% of non-Scottie lineups. He was in 7% of Scottie lineups, and he was only $8,300. But that too is like an example of just the difficulty of fitting Scottie, because when you use Scottie, it's not just that it's hard to fit somebody in the 8K range. It's that you only have one chance. So, right, like someone last week might have liked 3 guys in the 8K range. And if they used Scottie, maybe they picked wrong of which 8K guy they wanted to force in. If they didn't have Scottie, they used all the 8K guys that they liked, and Goddard happened to be one of them. So it was really easy to land on him. this week, I don't see the same separation in that 8K range to the 7K range. Like if you flipped like Thor Bjornsson's price with Ricky Fowler's price, so 8,600 to 7,600, I don't think we'd be staring at this like, wow, Ricky's like way too overpriced and Thor Bjornsson's super, super underpriced. I think he'd still get, plenty of ownership down there, but a lot of these guys in the 7K and 8K range seem much more interchangeable than they were last week, where last week, if you made Goddard up $7,300, he would have been 60% owned in single entries. So I do think in that way, this field is a lot more conducive to Scottie lineups. But when I look at, okay, am I likely to use Scottie? The answer for me is still no. But this time, instead of it being because I like the 7K and 8K range too much and I want to load up on that range instead of the low sevens and upper sixes, for me, it's more about this week. I think I'm going to end up wanting Henley, Rose, Hideki, Victor, Fleetwood, Rory. Like the idea of being able to use two of those guys under-owned with a really, really good GPP score over at FTN, that to me is just more enticing than using Scottie.
Yeah, the other thing too about the Scottie lineups is, again, different, single entry, you got to get everything right and you're going to need it all. So that's part of it. But I think a lot of the Scottie lineups end up very similar, even with the abundance of options down there. Like when you have Ryan Gerard at $7,500, you have Kitayama at 73, you have Min Woo at 72, Matt McCarty, a crowd favorite out there at 6,900. Like these, all the Rico Hoey 67, Rogers 66. We know what these other projection sites do. We've got, two of our own, and that's part of it as well, knowing that. But like where people go with the other big sites that they use, I think that blends it some as well. And the one thing about the Scottie lineup that's interesting is it kind of puts you all in on like in that range. It's who's the other guy that's there? I think Akshay is down there. Like however they decide to go on different guys down there, but Cam Young at 8,100 and Jake Knapp at 7,900. Even Ben Griffin at 8,400. Like some of these guys are popping off the page for that balance build. And then I gotta think too, Goddard up. I mean, he could be a lot more money, and I think people would still be considering him at 9K. But Scottie Goddard up doesn't really work. So it's like, it's tough. So I don't know. It's really tricky to pin down. I think it's like we did a couple weeks ago. There's the Scottie chalk build, and then there's like the non-Scottie chalk build. I'd be more curious, I guess. The Scottie chalk build seems easier to put together. The non-Scottie, where do you think they start? Is it Siwoo? Is it Henley? Is it Goddard up? I could even see people starting with Goddard up and just going balanced.
I do think it's Siwoo. I'm very curious to see what the field does with Goddard up, because historically, like one of the big, I honestly, like, I think inefficiencies in the way the industry uses players is we are very, very hesitant to go back to the guy who won in the previous week. Like over and over and over again, we see a post-win ownership discount that I personally like to take advantage of. I'm curious if Goddard has won so much recently that is kind of out the window, and that people now realize, oh, this guy can just keep winning. And so they won't give us that ownership discount this week. Currently in our ownership projections over FTN, I am not including that post-win ownership discount. We've got him just right behind basically like Siwoo and Fitzpatrick is the most popular guys in that 85 to 11.5 range, with Scottie around 30%. So yeah, I think one of the really common builds we'll see is like Siwoo Kim, one of Henley, Schauffele, Goddard up, and then Fitzpatrick, Cam Young, Knapp, kind of just going down the board that way. And, maybe one of those guys will have to be dropped because you can't fit it otherwise. But that to me is going to be like a collection of guys that are used together quite a bit, because it's guys who are playing really well right now, guys who are going to project well all around the industry, and guys who seem like they're probably a little bit underpriced relative to the guys who are next to them.
Yeah, and an interesting question here. I want to see something, your thought on this, and then I'll add if it's different. But Andrew says, so who would be the most popular second man in for Scottie lineups? Go ahead.
So if you use Scottie, you're left with $7,200 per the remaining 5 spots in your lineup, which for most people, that's going to make them scroll down to $7,200. They're not, then saying, okay, but I really want to fit this guy at 8,700, like it would be for Fitz, for example. They're going down to that $7,200 range, and they're figuring out who they like most in that range. I think the guys who are going to be most popular around that range are Cootie, Gerard, Minwoo Lee, and Kurt Kitayama. Maybe we get some Keith Mitchell steam, Connors, Stevens or McCarty could steam. So any of those names, but I think more than like any of those names specifically, it's a lot of Scottie lineups are going to be a collection of those names. And the more, and and some of those guys I mentioned are above 72. So the more guys that are used above 72, the more they're then going to have to go dip into the 6K range. So like Tom Hoagie could get steam, McGreevy could get steam. Patrick Rogers and Michael Kim again. The whole industry likes those guys. So yeah, pretty spread out because as we mentioned, like there actually are high quality names down there and there are a bunch of them. There are a lot more options this week of guys you can go to. So it is going to be easier to fit Scottie, but do we see one of those guys really separate at like 30% and nobody else gets a 20? I kind of don't think so. I kind of think that they're going to steam together and 15 to 20 might be the ceiling for some of them. And maybe we get one or two at like 25.
Yeah, that's what I want to see too. Another thing I want to bring up, just a key point, because it's, again, everybody reads stuff differently. But I think, when Andrew's saying who's the second man in, some people think right away, I'm just going to speak for both sides. I know somebody says, who's the second priced guy that goes in? I think of it, and maybe you do as well, like who's the second click people immediately go to, because that's what, what's the automatic click? And you named a few of them, but I think the chat said it. I think there's Straka, Gerard, Kitayama, Minwoo. Like these are the guys that are the values in projections that are going to pop off the page. Let's say it's Gerard at 7,500. There's going to be lineups that he's not the second priced guy in, but he could be the more popular. Like he's the second click for people, because to Alex's point, when people get down there, they go to that range. Let's say they put him and a couple other, mid-range or low end 7K guys in. Then they start to see, can I get to Straka and who? Oh, wait a minute. If I actually like the guy Hoagie, who's $200 cheaper, well, now I can move up from Straka to Nap. And that's where these 2v2 questions come from, right? Like, I'm on Straka and who is it? I'm on Straka and Hoey, or do I like Hoagie and Nap? Well, again, you got to look at the whole lineup, think about it from that perspective. But I think that's where those questions stem from when people are seeing it, because they start to realize what can fit. So the second click can oftentimes be the second person they go to. And so we'll see how it actually shakes out. But I think right now it looks like Nap, Gerard, Straka, and then down low, it looks like Kitayama, Minwoo. And then in the 6Ks, you're seeing like McCarty, Hoey, McGreevy, Patrick Rogers, just whoever the projection sites are pushing through. And then you can look at how you can get it different from there. In single entry, I would still be inclined. It's not my lane this week, but I'm saying if I was going Scottie, I would be embracing the variance down low. There's not going to be that much of a difference between 10 of those different names down there. And remember, they can't all get played. Oh, I heard someone mention this. I heard some people mention a lot of shit. That's why we don't do the full picks and plays. We're talking about how to play, not who. People talk about a lot of stuff. Some people that talk about it don't even actually play. And then some people that do talk about it and play don't necessarily land on, just a lock piece down there. Like I'm putting this person on. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be spread out. So there's a ton of different names down there where you could just embrace the variance and find guys that people can't get to in these spots. So anything else?
One of the names that you just mentioned, Tom Hoagie, I think is a really kind of great conversation piece, because he goes back to the conversation about why you and I don't care about course history. Tom Hoagie historically has been an outstanding iron player, very high quality putter, at least a streaky putter. So, somebody who over the years you get him when the putter's working over, a 6-week period, like he's just going to continue to make putts at a high clip. That historically has been a very good fit for Pebble Beach, as we talked about. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at his like 50 round rolling average for approach play on Data Golf, it's in the toilet. Like he stinks with the irons now. Our projection for him is he's going to lose over a quarter of a stroke per round with his irons right now. He's no longer a good fit. So if you're using Tom Hoagie this week because he has good course history here, I think you're kind of missing the point of why he has played well here in the past, because in the past, his game really fit this course. Now, that doesn't mean he can't play well this week, because it's still probably true that when he spikes, when he plays well, he's going to play well in the right categories. Like, when he finished 8th at the Amex, we did see him, flag a lot of shots. His irons were good. He was making a bunch of putts. His putter's been working all year so far, but He lost almost 0.7 per round with the irons at Torrey, and then he lost 1.8 per round last week at the WM to miss the cut with just his iron. So the part of his game that has been the reason why he has fit this course so well in the past right now is a weakness. And so when I look at Tom Hoge, like, I'm not expecting good things just because he has good history here. So if he's going to be 5 to 10% owned because he has good course history, like, to me, that's 5 to 10% of the field making a mistake that I want to take advantage of.
Right. And we'll see that in other places too, I guess. Again, not to say, like, I'll use another example, but Jason Day is playing fine right now from what we've seen recently. And he obviously has an incredible history here, but I think people also underestimate what the projections do for people, because at the end of the day, he doesn't project like the guys that have been 9K and above around, like a Ben Griffin, who's 8,400 will easily, they could end up being even. Day could even be a little bit more owned, but I'm just noting it could be a lot more equal than you think, or some early sites will project, because a lot of people early on go off the course history stuff, but the lineups are actually majority built with optimizers and things that are taking the projections into effect. And you can exploit that. If you think that's a weakness somewhere and you can find that in your favor, then use it. But it's the opposite side of it, to Alex's point with Hoge, where the projections might not even be on him. The recent form is not really great. He was good when he was good, and the course history is based off of that. But people are playing him at, a 5 to 10% rate. Well, that's where you can kind of exploit it the other way if you wanted to as well.
And also with Jason Day, like, remember how weak this field was before it became a signature event. He should have been contending year after year when he was by far the best player in the field most of those years. So we shouldn't be surprised that he was in contention all the time. Now, his numbers are like ridiculously consistent here. So it's not like he hasn't played even better than we would expect, but we should have expected him to contend quite a bit here. So the fact that he's played well, and remember, what is the one skill set that has been more predictive here than usual? Putting. Jason Day has been probably the best putter of the last 15 years in the world. So yeah, it's not surprising to see that he has done well, and it's a reflection of course fit and talent more than like just some, hidden black box fit of why he plays well here that is all you really get when you look at course history. No, we understand why he's played well here based on how good of a player he is and the way that he's fit the golf course.
Yeah, and I guess, like, looking at it too, obviously the last couple of years, still a 6th and a 13th, but back in the day, it was all top 7s are better, top 5s are better, top 4s, top 3s, seconds, things like that. So, it's not like he fell off a cliff, but obviously, pun intended, I guess, if you saw that Jordan Spieth new video that came out of him, like, that was the most insane thing, by the way, from any angle. But you see that new angle, man, that looked like one slip of the foot and he's gone. Someone said it, I think it was in the comments, it was like, Greller, like, you pick up that ball and you're like, I don't care. Like, this is my job and it's to protect you. You'll thank me later. Because now Spieth says he even regrets hitting that shot. But that was very wild when you think back to that. Would you be attempting that, Alex? I don't think I would be anywhere near that.
I have no idea, just because, like, I don't know what it felt like for Spieth in the moment. If I felt fine with my footing, I'm probably the knucklehead who would try something like that.
Jeez, man, that's dangerous stuff. I don't know. I'm not into that, but I will say, good point there on the Jason Day stuff. And even, like, again, that's where the course history stuff can still be used. It's just, how do you use it and think about it? And you did it with Hoge. You did it again with Day, just bringing up those perspectives. So I certainly appreciate that. I think others will as well. Now let's talk about leveraging this chalk build that we sort of have got down to here. I know we've got 2 versions of it, but is there anything you see? It could be part of your lane later. I mean, I think, I don't want to give it away too soon, but I think, like, there's certainly something here, and I'll get to it later. But there's a way that can, like, leverage everything. But just go ahead. Is there, for leveraging the chalk build for single entry focus, like we always talk about, GPP perspective, the $200, by the way, very nice this week, 50K up top. So very excited about that one. But what sort of thoughts do you have about leveraging these chalk builds that we just talked about?
I think one of the things that we notice when we're looking at ownership projections so far is that most of the chalky guys are chalk because of how well they have played so far this season, that people have already seen them playing quality golf, and that makes them more confident that they're going to play well this week. So I think one of the clear ways that you can leverage it, instead of just talking about like specific players or specific price ranges, just switch to guys that historically are really good players and are underpriced for what they have done over the last 2 years or something like that. So someone like JJ Spawn at $7,800, there's some injury concern, but if he's not injured and you're just looking at like what the body of work has been over the last 8 months, 12 months, 24 months, nobody is as underpriced as he is. So you're also getting an ownership discount there. You can make the same case for somebody like Bobby Mack or let's see, like even someone like Patrick Cantlay or Justin Rose, who actually has a win this week, or win this year, but he seems like he's going to be on her own. And then, down lower, you can get to somebody like a Wyndham Clark or an Alex Noren or Corey Connors. So looking instead at long-term body of work and knowing that this is a really, really good player, I think that's a really solid way to leverage the field this week, because the field is very clearly like in on guys who have shown it this year and are consistently playing good golf right now. That doesn't necessarily mean they're more likely to play well this week.
Yeah. I think that's key. And then I think just looking at the ranges, right? When you're talking about it, like obviously the Scottie lineups we mentioned, can you get Straka in there and Knapp in there? Like whatever. Yeah, you can get one of them, right? Or maybe two if you stretch it thin, but you can't really get three guys from there, right? The balanced version could. So I would be thinking about that if you're flipping it out, but like flipping it up. But I think what you said earlier too is a prime example. If you like three value plays and they all work with Scottie, think about what everybody else is doing. If they like the similar three value plays, they're probably looking next up Scottie. What if you put that in with the three value plays you like, where you end up on 2 9K guys that others aren't on? And again, these, I'm not going to really have a specific pick. I'm going to speak to something when I get to my lane later, but just to note it, like quick example from it, the Hidekis, the Justin Roses, the Gotterups, the guys like that, they're all playing really good golf. People just don't want to stick with them. Oh, they can't keep doing that. And you could start stacking those up and leveraging up and finding separation even further, because some aren't even putting one separator into their lineup that way. They're going to Siwoo or Henley or, whoever it is up top that they're comfortable with, Fitzpatrick or Jason Day or whatever in the mid-range, like whatever that looks like. You can use that to your advantage, because for everybody that's going to those guys, they're not going to those other guys. And a lot of them are saying it's because they can't do it again. They've been doing it and they can do it again. Goddard can't win again. Oh, wait, he just won again. And so it's like he can do it plenty. I remember he won the Scottish Open. He can't show up at the Open. No way. Wait a minute. Top 5, top 3, whatever it was the following week. It's like he can definitely continue playing good golf. So it does feel like in this field, there is some of that where people are leaving other guys out, just based on it's like the thought process or the feeling of they can't do it again. And then I also think too, like the certain guys that we've liked all season. And again, I don't really care recent form or anything about their course history, like we said, but like if you're looking at Oberg, Robert McIntyre, if you go down to who's the other guy I was thinking of, Nick Taylor, Taylor Pendrith, sorry, right above him, and then 2 Canadians, 2 Taylors, but just noting that. And then even like Penge down below. We wanted these guys at different times this season already, and now you just don't want them. Again, the field did get stronger, but it's almost like a thought I have when you have to fill out 6 players in a lineup, and we talk about this all the time about the lineup and not just the play of your one and done point you made this season. And we're going to get to the one and done segment shortly, but just noting it of it's like you kind of want them when they can make the biggest difference for you. Okay, 4 guaranteed rounds, very low ownership in some cases, can separate and kill guys around them completely. And that's where somebody's sitting there with a 5 of 6, not in the sense that you think they have the same 6 of 6 as you. Everybody made the cut, but 5 of their guys did good and their chalky 6th guy didn't. And you've got the separator there because you were willing to go back to the well on a guy that you saw all season. So a little bit of a sneak preview for where I'm going with it, but I just think that's so important. And that's how I like to embrace the variance in a no cut, more than just saying, I'm going to pick some randoms off the wall. And you can also use this, just of note, try to make this evergreen. You can use this in Showdown as well. You see it all. How many times, I know everybody out there can vouch for this. You've been on somebody in round 2 or round 3 Showdown. You went off of them in round 3 and round 4 and watched them dominate you and win the tournament for somebody. And like, of course, the day after I went away from them. I'm not saying you got to stick with them every day. I'm just saying the reason that happens is because everything you thought you liked about them or everything they were doing well could click in. You could just be a day late, right? Day late and a lot of dollars short is certainly a statement when it comes to DFS with Showdown, with Classic, with whatever it is, but with no cuts. I think that's a big factor as well. A lot of the guys that you already like, Sam Stevens, it's 7K flat. He fits all the Scottie lineups. Everyone's liked him all season. Currently, again, we'll see what the other projection sites do, but I don't see him very high right now from an ownership perspective, just because it's not really the range people are landing in. They want that 72 to 79 range. So the low 7s, the upper 6s, maybe McCarty gets some, but you'll see some really good lineups at the end of the week. I'll end the rant soon, but just you'll see some really good lineups. It'll have someone like Stevens and McCarty, and people are like, oh, those chalk donkeys always come through. But this week they're 5%. They might have been chalk donkeys previous weeks. They're not necessarily that this week. You're comfortable with the name. You've seen the name because they've been in your thoughts. They've been in your lineups, right? You've been using them. They're not even chalk. When you're calling them chalk, you're just mad because you weren't on them this week, but you were other weeks. So using guys like that can really build some unique lineups for you that aren't crazy or stupid. No crazy diamonds in the rough. You were literally just on them or others were, but they're coming through when now people have moved off of them. So not rocket science, but I think it's very critical in events like this, especially with no cut, automatic 4 rounds.
Yep. Agreed there. I think it might be time for one and done in betting.
I agree. Yeah, I'm good with that. Rant over. What is the thoughts on the one and done? I'll just, go through it quickly here just to preview it one last time. I want to see too what it got to. Let me do this, Alex, right quick. If you guys didn't see, so we got up from 420 to 443. So we're still under 500 entries right now. But if you guys haven't checked it out yet, go to splashsports.com. It's $100 for the entire season to get in. So it's $4 or just under per event. There's 27 events. The prizes are huge. 20,000, 11,000, 7,000, almost 7,000, 45, 3, 23, 6 to 10. Like a lot of big prizes that you can play for there. So check that out. What are your thoughts for this week? I know like all season long, people have just been talking it up about like the breakdown and how you can sort of see through when you should use guys, but this is our first signature event. So I'm very curious to get your take on this one.
Yeah, we are there. We have finally made it to the point where we are trying to win this week instead of what we've been doing, which is more like just a focus on making sure we're saving guys for weeks like this. So my thought is I want to start a little bit contrarian, and this still isn't like the biggest purse. We're going to get a couple majors and we're going to get the players that have an even bigger first place prize. So I think what I want to do here is get a little bit contrarian, and I want to find somebody with just a massive amount of win equity, even if they're a little bit less likely to play super well. So the number one guy that I have in mind is Justin Rose, where if you told me that 6 months from now, when we get into like the middle of the summer, 4 or 5 months from now, that he just isn't playing super well anymore, I'd believe you. He's 45 years old. But right now, he's playing extremely good golf. He's beating any competition when he's on his A game. So I kind of want to just ride the hot wave with Rose here. And I think that he'll be pretty low owned, where if we get it right, now we're in now we're in the driver's seat where we can start just playing the best play week after week and still put ourselves in position for the top prize, whether it's, against 1,500-ish people like in your splash contest, or a massive amount like in the Pat Mayo contest.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because I got a text from my dad this morning. I enter his Pat Mayo, Papa Tambo is the name in the contest, and he's very interested in Justin Rose this week. So likes what he sees. He's kind of thinking the same method we were just talking about of like, it's not just about it's not just about the history. It's more about like also how he's been playing and just coming off of a win, but like also ride the hot hand while he's hot, because it could fall apart pretty quickly. And I mean, we talk about this all the time too, by the way, just making fun of a ton of different NFL players, but like early on in the season, like let's play this guy before he breaks down and falls apart in the second half of the season. So it's like little things like that can kind of be thought about here as well. I know I'm definitely not calling a 46-year-old old when I just turned 40 myself. Trust me, he's young. Yeah. He's very young, many, many years to go. Some say he could only be at like a 1/3 life crisis right now for, new technologies and things advance. But I will say, that is something still to be said in a game like golf. Back, aches, swing, speed, all these different factors that you're working on. Capitalize on it now. We know what gets you through to the FedEx Cup playoffs, get all these points early on, and then you can kind of coast a little bit if you're not feeling fully healthy or all there with your game or working on things. So I like that call. I don't really have too many other thoughts. Like I guess what I wouldn't be doing is like what the conversation you had around like some people like just get comfortable being like Jason Day. He never messes up here. I'll just use him. The other thing I will say, though, is I don't think I'm using Scottie, right? Like I think it's still, for me, as good as Scottie is, and I get all that, and it's definitely a time where you could at least make money off of it. I still kind of want Scottie for something with 4 rounds and a cut, and also like really hard over the 4 days. We're like, okay, I'm getting a top 5 from Scottie. I know people say that's every week. I get it. He just came 3rd even again last week. but it's like, I really want it to be like a top 3, you're like a really high likelihood of that. Every week feels like that for Scottie. But for me, I see a bunch of different options in this field early on that I could go to. So I'm out on Jason Day and I'm out on Scottie Scheffler. That's the two that I'm certain on, at least.
Yeah, I think I'm also out on Rory. And interestingly, like 2 years ago, I used Rory here at 1%. Thought, oh, what a brilliant decision. It looked like he was going to win early on day one. He was like 6 under on Spyglass and up by 3, and then he forgot how to golf.
Yes,
and ended up finishing like 30th, something like that.
I think he finished like 60th or something.
Yeah. And then last year, I did not go back to him. He won at 1% again. And I was like, oh my God, you moron. Why did you not use the exact same logic as you did last year? But now, because he won last year, I don't think he'll be 1% again. So now I'd rather save Rory for a course that fits him a lot better. Something like where, driving matters more than usual. So that's kind of the other point with Rose that I kind of forgot to mention is like, he's not losing as much off the tee and with the ball striking to the other elite players this week. And he might be the best putter of the elites right now. So he's one of the best putters in this field. So this course fit model, this golf course, it allows him to contend with the other elites a little bit better than most will.
Yeah, one interesting thing too, I'll just add this in and I'll let you get to the betting breakdown, was also really fits like the model of everything we're going to talk about, but the breakdown of Goddard again, like now is your separator. Now, not many people, again, nobody thinks he can win again. It's now we're in a stronger field. Like, of course, why would you go to Goddard? He just won. It's how a lot of people see it. There was like two of the 4 rounds last week, he lost pretty bad with the putter. He still had a lot of other things going good for him. He bombs it out there. This would be a week for, 2 people, like 2 tournaments have already been won by Goddard where people got the Goddard money out of it. And now you can get the most Goddard money on a week like this. Well, he's playing good. Well, he fits the course, all these different factors. I would have no problem with that. If you want to ride the hot hand, I also think a lot of people are already talking about, early Ryder Cup stuff and things like how good Goddard is, and leaving Goddard behind for Morikawa is like much easier to say after a couple more wins and stuff, but I get it. My point would just be, I just think to your point earlier, not many people are going to go to him because of what he's done already, but what he's done already could almost be why you could or should go to him.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily one and done centric, but I think it's kind of an important point when we go back to the discussion of, not necessarily just going in on all the chalk that's played well this year. There are 4 guys who really stand out to me: Goddard, Thor Bjornsson, Jake Knapp, Pearson Coody. What these 4 players all have in common, in addition to playing very well last week and playing well so far this season, they are all in the upper echelon of our strokes gained driving distance and our strokes gained driving accuracy estimates. This is really important because we're coming from a golf course in Scottsdale where both of those aspects of golf were extremely predictive. They're a lot more predictive than usual. So, in other words, have they played really well because they're super, super in form and they're just going to continue to play well no matter what golf course they're on? Or did they just play really well last week because all 4 of these guys were on golf courses that are perfect? We're on a golf course that are perfectly suited for their games. And now they're going to a golf course that isn't as suited to their games, where that big giant strength that they have. And like for Thor Bjornsson, Goddard, and Coody especially, like those are their only 2 strengths relative to this field. Knapp is also an excellent putter, so I think there's a better argument for Knapp this week than those other 3. But those other 3 guys, that's it. They drive the ball longer and straighter than everybody else in this field, or than most of this field. There's not a single other skill set where they are at or above average relative to the rest of this field, or at least relative to the rest of the best players in this field. So I think it's going to be a lot harder for them to contend this week, and they're all going to get ownership because they're playing very well. And so I think that's like a really kind of interesting way to think about current form, and notice just that current form is a product of their recent fit. And when suddenly they're going to a golf course that's a much worse fit than what it's been, that's potentially a time to sell high. And similarly, somebody who hasn't played well in the last few weeks because they are very short off the tee, they're inaccurate off the tee. Now they get to a course in Pebble where that doesn't hold them back as much. And so maybe you get some really nice buy low opportunities on some guys that way as well.
Yeah, I like it. Anything stand out from like the betting side of things? Anything extra to add?
Yeah, I've got two outrights. My favorite one is Fitzpatrick, except I don't know if he's still available at 40. So let me do a quick check on our prop shop over at FTN for Fitzpatrick. And 35 is now the best number. I think 35 is still good, but obviously it's not as good as 40. So instead, let me give out JJ Spawn. And I talked about Spawn a little bit with Pat on the show yesterday, where I don't know that I'm going to be taking that risk on DraftKings because there is still a risk that he's injured, he's going to withdraw, or he's just going to play poorly because there really is something bothering him. And so the downside risk is very much there, and it's meaningful on DraftKings. In the outright market, the downside doesn't matter because 97% of the time when he's healthy, he's going to lose anyway. All we care about is, does he have a 3% chance to win? And he does in our model, and we're getting him at 60-1 at Pebble, 55 in some other places, 50-1 with an each way on Bet365. So I like the Spawn bet quite a bit. And like I said, we've got him at 3.0% to win. That is not factoring in any injury. So that's basically saying we think he's healthy. Most of the time when guys miss 1 week in PGA and then return, they missed the fact that they missed due to injury is a little bit more like, oh, I have something bothering me enough that I can claim injury, where really I just feel like I needed to work on my game for a week. And now maybe that game is good to go. So the upside is very much there. And I love him in the outright.
I like it. And people were mad last week. It's like, oh, as soon as he WD'd, they're like, what's his Rose pick now? I was like, well, it wasn't his Rose pick. It was his Spawn pick. The Rose was the week before. He won. But I like that call out. So bringing him back in, I knew you were on the Fitz number a little bit earlier. So that's awesome to see as well. Obviously played really well last week. Didn't, keep it up the whole week, but pretty crazy that, again, just a takeaway for everybody with DFS. And that was a cut event. But day one, Scottie was declared dead at whatever his number, 73 or whatever. And Siwoo, I think, shot a 75 or whatever the numbers were after day one. And Matt Fitzpatrick had won the tournament. Both those golfers came back to beat Matt Fitzpatrick by at least 2 strokes in the end. So, yeah, it was 2 strokes over them, 15 under versus 13 under. So little things like that stand out. All right, we made it to the end. We will get to our leverage lane for the week. I don't even know how I'm going to say mine. So I'll let you say yours first, and then I will give a breakdown of mine and give people something to think about.
Okay. So mine's kind of going to be a combination of what I already talked about, trying to buy low on players who are just very, very good players long-term and haven't necessarily shown us much this season. But I also am leaning into a metric that I recently created, birdie rate over expectation. And essentially what this metric is saying, and it's available in my Discord. You can use promo code leverage for 10% off forever if you're interested in my Discord. Essentially what this is saying is I am confident. I'm not very confident this week in who's going to play well. The course fit model is not conducive to predicting who's going to play well. Instead, I am confident in who's going to score really well if they play well. That's guys like at the top, Rory, Victor, Rose. These guys make a ton of birdies. Then in the mid range, it's Thorbjornsen, Oberg, Cam Young, Burns, Jake Knapp, Pearson Coody, Harry Hall, Jordan Spieth, Akshay, Thigala, Kitayama, Keith Mitchell, Wyndham Clark. So lots of these guys. Essentially what you're saying is when they play well, they might finish 15th on the actual leaderboard. They might be 7th on the DraftKings leaderboard. They're going to give me a ton of birdies. They're going to give me streaks. They're going to give me eagle opportunities. So I'm really leaning into that aspect of it because I don't think that I can accurately predict who's going to play well on this golf course. So instead I'll predict who scores really well when they play well. And this is also naturally going to lead me to some contrarian guys because a lot of those guys, the field is almost even opposed to, because one of the reasons why someone gets to that really like high birdie rate over expectation is because they also make too many mistakes. And so the field is a little bit scared by their volatility and their downside. And I'm going to embrace that and hope that they make a ton of birdies for me.
Yeah, I definitely love that angle. I mean, I talked a little bit about that stuff throughout as well, but mine's going to be just to fade Scottie. I'm interested to see where his ownership comes in, but I'm going to add to it. Of course, I just want to note something so the Scottie popular build with Scottie and let's say Straka. Let's just use Scottie Straka for a second. really involves a 6K guy. Like if you look at it a million different ways, it's pretty much at least one $6,700 or $6,800 guy. So just a quick note, if you like the $6,700 or $6,800 guy, what I would fade that for is very simple. Every single Scottie Straka lineup can be Rory and Fleetwood. So just a note, if you like the low end, I'm just giving you the swaparoos here. That's a 2v2 swaparoo. Your 6K guy can be different than the other ones, but if you find the lineup like the Scottie build and you realize it has Scottie and Straka, I'm not playing that version, so that's the part of my lane is I'm not going down that route. You can flip that to Rory and Fleetwood. Just those two, it's 1 for 1. So just a little note there, you're taking on the risk. You know what it is. I can promise you with Rory and Fleetwood, even if they do get a little bit of steam, I just don't know if they will at those prices, especially together. You will still be able to get away with kind of whatever you want down low. I wouldn't go like all the chalk, but I'm just saying you'd be able to move to the good plays down there that you want. And just then you're battling Rory and Fleetwood versus Scottie and mid 7K guy. So there's that. But we'll see where ownership settles. Here's my big one. I have a hard time believing that the 8K range will be completely left alone. Like I think Day will still get some. I think Griffin will still get some. I think Oberg, McIntyre, Young, they'll all pick up some steam. I know the 9K is getting brought up, but if you take Scottie, Straka, and the 6K guy out, a la the first week when I was against you on the Scottie side thing, you can get to 3 9K guys, and just using Scottie, Straka, and $6,700, which is a very common build this week, as we talked about, rounding it all out, I can play Siwoo, Decky, and Gotterup for the same price. And that's where my lane's going to end. I don't know if it's going to be on exactly those 3, but I told you I like Siwoo, I like Decky, I like Rose, I like Henley, I like Gotterup. I think Henley's probably the least of those guys, but those other 4, some combination of 3 of those guys, I can still sort of get away with whatever I want. And even if they do pick up steam, we're talking like 15 to 20% range in most stuff for that area. So I'm going to be interested more in that. If I do feel the 9K range gets pumped up too much, I can always go to my Rory, Fleetwood, and 6K guys. So fade Scottie, fade the common build, and then move it down to something in those 2 ranges with exact swaparoos. I call it a 2v2 swaparoo or a 3v3 in this case if you want it to be, but I think that's something that I'm looking at for this week. Any other final thoughts from you, Alex, before we get out of here? If not, you can let the people know where they can find you.
At Alex Blickle 1 on Twitter. As I mentioned, you can use promo code leverage for 10% off everything in my Discord. And that discount is forever. So every single time it renews. And also over at FTN Fantasy, when you want that data, sign up with promo code Blick. You'll get 10% off there.
Yeah. Should note, because the caveat people out there, I can already hear it. So I'm bringing it up now. The single entry I'm talking about is the $200 single entry with 50K up top. When you see me in, by the way, another note, the $5 drive the green is the best it's been ever so far. So I will be definitely playing in that. Not just it's cheaper, which is nice, but it's also 300K prize pool with 30K to first, 3K to 10th. And something we don't talk about a ton, but I love when it comes to contest selection is I actually prefer less people get paid. I mean, like I always say, we play to ship it. I know that's not how it works though. So I get why you want min cashes. I know for sure why DraftKings wants more min cashes, just to recycle the money. And I get all that's part of, if you want the game to stick around and blah, blah, blah. But my point would be, I like what they did with poker. Like the World Series of Poker has like a very nice payout structure at the main event. They usually only pay 15 to 18% of the field though. It's like if they can rejuvenate cash games. If you don't like only 15 to 18% getting paid, I just don't always think 25. Like they let $100,000 sit in 8,000th place to 15,000th. And it's like, that's just min cashes that you could just bump up the board and make everything better. And then everybody should play to win. So I will say that before we get out of here. But yeah, in my MME stuff, you can play some Scottie for sure this week. But I prefer in single entry just to move off from completely. Even if it was like 20 lineups or less, I probably wouldn't be interested. But in 150, you'll see some Scottie. Lastly, the number one thing for us right now, you can go to shipitnation.com. If you want to check out everything we got with the site there. If you are on our YouTube channel right now and you see the video from yesterday, Hoop and myself broke down everything we've got going on for members and non-members this upcoming season with PGA. And then lastly, the one and done, we'll do one more courtesy refresh before we get out of here. 449. So it's getting closer to 450, Alex. But yeah, 1,667, 150K guaranteed. Go to splashsports.com. If you want to use the promo code SHIPIT for a referral code, you get a little bit of a bonus. But even if you don't, the key is just if you're already a Splash Sports user, whatever you are, go to Splash Sports, put your $100 in. It works out to less than $4 per event to get in. All right. That's going to do it for this week, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Remember to let us know in the comments if you have any questions that you want us to talk about in future, thought-provoking questions or thoughts. If there's something you love that we talked about, you never heard it that way, or you had added thoughts to it, please let us know. We're going to bring those comments up in the coming weeks. For Alex and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, good luck this week, and let's ship it.